always felt different before you had language for it, before labels, before explanations. A quiet distance separated you from rooms full of people. Even when you tried to blend in perfectly, that difference was not imagined. It was sensed, carried, and quietly questioned every single day. You noticed it early. The way thoughts arrived in floods instead of lines. The way time slipped sideways through your hands. The way emotions landed heavier and stayed longer. Others seemed calibrated for a world that felt slightly off to you, like gravity pulled at a different angle. They told you to focus, to try harder, to be consistent. You listened, you pushed, you burned energy just to appear normal. Inside, guilt accumulated. Shame learned your name. You watched unfinished tasks pile up like silent witnesses to a crime you never intended to commit. This is the real reason you felt different, not because you were weak, not because you were careless, because your mind was not built to move the way theirs did. It was built to scan, leap, connect, and sense long before permission was given. From the outside, it looked like distraction. On the inside, it felt like being tuned to too many frequencies at once. Every sound mattered. Every shift registered. You could not ignore what others filtered out effortlessly. Sensitivity was not optional. It was constant. You learned early that this made people uncomfortable. Teachers misread silence. Authority mistrusted intensity. Friends mistook depth for drama. Betrayal rarely arrived loudly. It arrived through underestimation, through lowered expectations, through being overlooked while standing right there. So you adapted, you masked, you smiled when overwhelmed, you agreed when confused, you apologized when existing. Each apology taught your nervous system that something about you required correction. Over time, that lesson carved itself into identity. This is where the shame cycles began. You planned brilliantly, then stalled. You envisioned futures vividly, then froze at execution. Time blindness distorted effort. Hours vanished. Deadlines arrived suddenly like ambushes. You blamed character instead of wiring. But here is the truth that changes everything. You do not think differently because you are broken. You think differently because your brain prioritizes possibility over procedure. It moves in constellations, not checklists. The difference was never designed for classrooms or cubicles. Your mind is nonlinear. It jumps gaps others cannot see. It recognizes patterns before logic catches up. While they walk paths, you map terrain. This makes you early. Not wrong. Early thinkers always look incorrect, until the world catches up behind them. The pain came from living too long in environments hostile to your strengths. Fish drown on land. Hawks starve underwater. Context decides competence. Nobody taught you this, so you assumed failure was personal. It was structural. Hyperfocus is proof. When interest ignites, you disappear into depth. Hours collapse. Complexity becomes play. Mastery accelerates. This is not inconsistency. It is precision engagement. Your brain conserves energy until meaning appears, then releases everything. Creativity follows the same rule. Ideas arrive fully formed, emotional, vivid. They do not ask permission. They interrupt. This feels chaotic in rigid systems. In open ones, it becomes innovation. History favors minds that break patterns, not maintain them. Emotional intensity is another misunderstood edge. You feel more because you perceive more. Your empathy reads rooms instantly. You sense shifts before words change. This sensitivity protects, guides, and connects deeply when not shamed into hiding. Still, pressure built. Comparison poisoned confidence. Watching others progress linearly made You doubt your value. You measured worth by output, not insight. Eventually, something inside fractured. Burnout, numbness, a quiet collapse that looked like giving up. That break was necessary. It stripped away false standards. It forced a question you avoided. What if the problem was not you, but the frame you were forced into? That question is the beginning of rebuilding power. The first transformation is identity separation. You stop equating difficulty with defect. You observe patterns without judgment. You learn how your energy cycles work. Awareness replaces shame. This alone restores stolen confidence. The second transformation is environmental alignment. You stop forcing focus through punishment. You reduce friction. You design cues that turn impulse into action. Structure becomes support, not cage. Execution improves without cruelty. The third transformation is emotional discipline, not suppression. Direction. You learn to channel intensity into creation, not self-attack. Feeling becomes fuel, sensitivity becomes signal. Control grows quietly through practice. This is when the difference changes meaning. What once isolated you now distinguishes you. Others freeze when systems fail. You adapt. You improvise. You see paths in uncertainty. The storm that overwhelmed you becomes familiar territory. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are built different. Different for movement. Different for chaos. Different for futures. Not written yet. The world taught you to doubt. This because it fears what it cannot categorize. The real reason you felt different is because you were never meant to fit. You were meant to see, to connect, to create, to move ahead of certainty. This understanding is not comfort. It is ignition. And this is only the beginning. Word count 950. Next. The rebuild does not feel heroic at first. It feels awkward, quiet, uncertain. You are standing between identities, no longer who you were, not yet who you are becoming. This space feels empty, but it is actually raw ground waiting for architecture. Old habits resist quietly. Shame still whispers. Comparison still stings. You catch yourself measuring progress by foreign metrics. That reflex does not vanish overnight. It loosens gradually as evidence replaces old stories with lived proof. You begin noticing moments others miss, small wins, clean execution, faster recovery after setbacks. You start trusting internal signals again. Focus arrives more predictably when conditions align. You stop forcing productivity through guilt and start inviting it through design. This is where the creative edge sharpens, not through inspiration alone, but through containment. Fire becomes useful only when shaped. You learn to protect attention like a resource. Inputs become intentional. Noise reduces. Clarity increases. The world still misunderstands you. They always will. Your pace confuses them. Your pauses worry them. Your bursts intimidate them. You stop explaining. Translation drains energy better spent building. Silence becomes efficiency. Underestimation persists, but it no longer wounds. It shields. Expectations stay low, while capability compounds. You are free to experiment without surveillance. Failure teaches faster, without public pressure. Growth accelerates in privacy. Your mind starts trusting itself again. Ideas connect without panic. You capture them quickly. You store them safely. Nothing is wasted now. Even distractions reveal patterns. Curiosity becomes compass instead of liability. Time blindness does not disappear. It becomes manageable. You build buffers. You externalize time. Alarms replace anxiety. Calendars stop feeling like judgment. They become navigation tools, neutral and supportive. Emotional intensity stabilizes into depth. You feel fully without drowning. Regulation replaces suppression. You let emotions pass through action, instead of rumination. Movement clears storms faster than thought ever could. This changes relationships. You listen better. You choose words carefully. You withdraw sooner from disrespect. Boundaries harden gently, not aggressive, clear. People adjust or fall away. Both outcomes serve alignment. Creative confidence grows differently for you. It is not loud. It is grounded. You stop chasing novelty for stimulation alone. You choose projects with depth. Meaning sustains attention longer than excitement ever did. This is when output changes quality. Work becomes original, not reactive. You synthesize instead of imitate. Your non-linear intelligence shows itself clearly. Solutions appear unconventional but effective. Results validate instinct. Pressure tests this new structure. Stress returns unexpectedly. Old spirals attempt revival. This is the moment that defines permanence. You pause. You observe. You intervene early. Collapse shortens. Control holds. You realize resilience was always there. It was buried under shame. With shame removed, endurance surfaces. You bounce back faster. You forgive quicker. You stay oriented toward progress, not punishment. Your creative edge now intimidates quietly. Others sense depth without understanding source. You remain calm while complexity rises. The steadiness unsettles rigid thinkers. They rely on certainty. You rely on adaptability. Innovation thrives here. You prototype ideas rapidly. Feedback loops tighten. You iterate without attachment. Ego dissolves. Curiosity leads. This flexibility outpaces perfectionism every time. You stop romanticizing struggle. Discipline replaces chaos. Structure supports freedom. You respect energy cycles. You plan recovery. Sustainability becomes strategy, not compromise. The storm imagery shifts. It no longer represents overwhelm. It represents movement. Weather changes. You navigate. You do not demand clear skies. You travel anyway. This is the second truth. Your creative edge sharpens through ownership. When you stop apologizing for how you think, you start refining how you act. Power grows quietly through consistency. The rebuild continues. The next phase will test scale, not survival. Expansion. Responsibility increases. Influence widens. The edge you forged must now carry weight. That test comes next. Word count, 950 next. Now the weight arrives. Not the crushing kind. The confirming kind. The kind that asks whether you can hold what you asked to become. This is where many retreat. You do not. You stabilize. You widen your stance. You carry it. Your creative edge now demands stewardship. Ideas are no longer escapes. They are responsibilities. You choose which to pursue and which to let pass. Selection becomes power. Focus becomes identity. You stop proving. You start building legacies. Pressure feels different now. It no longer triggers panic. It signals importance. Your nervous system recognizes stakes and sharpens instead of collapsing. Breath slows. Vision widens. You move deliberately through complexity while others search for instruction. This is leadership shaped by difference, You do not dominate rooms loudly. You orient them. Your calm steadies chaos. Your questions reframe problems. People follow clarity more than charisma, and you offer clarity forged through internal war. The ADHD mind at full command becomes rare terrain. You balance speed with patience, intuition with verification, emotion with discipline. This integration is what others lack. They specialize narrowly. You synthesize broadly. You still feel deeply. That never left. What changed is direction. Emotion informs action instead of derailing it. Anger becomes boundary. Sadness becomes meaning. Joy becomes endurance. Feeling stops being liability and becomes compass. Time remains elastic, but you plan for that. You build margins. You respect fatigue. You design exits before collapse. Self-trust grows because self-abandonment ended. This trust multiplies effectiveness across every domain. Quietly, you now recognize betrayal patterns early. You sense misalignment before damage. You withdraw without drama. Energy conservation becomes instinct. You protect attention ruthlessly because you know what it costs to regain once shattered. Comparison fades into irrelevance. You no longer ask whether you are ahead or behind. You ask whether you are aligned. This metric never lies. Progress measured internally lasts longer than applause ever could. Your work deepens. It carries signature. People recognize it without explanation. Originality becomes unavoidable. This is the reward of nonlinear intelligence finally respected and disciplined. You stop chasing stimulation. Purpose sustains you longer. Depth replaces novelty. You tolerate boredom strategically because boredom often precedes breakthrough. This patience separates creators from consumers permanently. The storm inside no longer needs release. It needs direction. You give it structure. The fire burns clean. The blade stays sharp. You choose when to strike, when to wait, when to walk away. Others still misunderstand. That never changes. What changes is impact. Results recalibrate perception. You do not correct narratives. You let outcomes speak. Silence becomes final authority. This is mythic energy grounded in reality, not fantasy. Earned. You forged it through shame, confusion, adaptation, discipline. Few survive that process without bitterness. You emerged precise. The real reason ADHD people feel different becomes clear now. You were never designed for compliance. You were designed for adaptation, for sensing shifts early, for creating paths where none exist. Difference was the signal, not the flaw. The signal that you were wired for futures not yet stable, for roles that require speed and empathy together, for innovation under pressure. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You were built different. Different enough to see what others miss. Strong enough to carry it. Disciplined enough to apply it. The edge is no longer raw. It is honed. You carry it forward with restraint. This is maturity of the storm. Power without noise. Movement without chaos. Stand in that truth. Build from it. Watch what follows when difference becomes command. Subscribe for the next ascent.